If you had $6 million, how would you build a better backstory?
Wow, great timing. Um, by Steve Austin, the $6 million man from the '70s. You have no idea.
I do know who I
Okay.
do. I do.
Just the building better backstories, that kind of building better. It kind of remind me of that a little bit.
Build it
Better,
faster,
faster, stronger
stronger.
backstories. So, another great thing that I loved about learning 5e was the emphasis they put and the tools they gave for building your backstories, right? Pick a background, and the background has some tables if you wanted to use
Hmm.
them to pick what were your flaws, what were your motivations, what were your hopes, your dreams,
Yeah.
all those kind of things. So that really helped build backstories. But I've found that I really like it. And after going through all that, I usually use the backstory section on a character sheet. And it's my first time writing in the character's voice. And I typically write my backstories as the character talking to somebody.
All right.
So I can use their voice and just give the backstory. But things that I found were really cool ways to put more stuff into your backstories. I was playing a game one time online, didn't last long, but this DM said everybody could pick one um, common magic item to start the game. And so I took, went and found the one that I was, and then I felt like, well, I had to explain how you got this magic item, right? So the story, besides what the background and all the tools in 5e gave me, I also added to my backstory what was the story of how he got the boots of Elvenkind
Yeah.
or whatever, and I found that was pretty helpful. What about you?
I really like in Call of Cthulhu that you have like notable places, notable people. Like you can take certain experience packages that'll give you like a phobia or a scar, and being able to use that, like, okay, I have to take a scar. Well, how did I get it? How does that affect my day to day life now? Like, I really like the way that that one works. I like 5Es as well, but I like that I can pick like a notable person. And when I'm thinking about, okay, it's her grandma. Well, why is it her grandma? Well, she sit and have tea with her in the sunroom, and it was the few moments in her childhood that she felt calm or whatever. And being able to kind of go through that where it's less about bonds and ideals, but more about a person, a place, a thing. I like that one. But I think anything you do to really ask deeper questions than just, well, what does your character do? Well, they fight shit. No. Well, why do they fight shit? What brought them here? Why do they choose to become a pirate? Why do they, I think that to me, anytime you take that time to ask those questions, you get to build these little like connecting lines in your character. And they help you plot how they react, how they act, and what they're searching for and how they work inside their team and their group. And I think it just helps you build a better overall character.
Do you remember the tweet a while back where the person, like, they apparently were GMing a game or DMing a game, and they said, just got a 6-page backstory from a potential player, not letting that person into my game.
I would pay that person to be in my game.
Like,
I would love that. You could write me a whole novel. I'd read that shit.
that's ridiculous to me. Thinking like having a backstory that's longer than 3 sentences is a problem, because it's one thing if, like, you're going through and you're saying, oh, well, I'm the king of this place and I have this magic weapon that lets me imbue you with powerful magics that
Yeah.
do this and that. But having like a life story
I think
that
that's
you can
epic.
draw from in the game that doesn't necessarily uh, entitle you to anything, or give you anything special mechanics wise, that's great.
Yeah. If the player's like, well, why hasn't my long lost twin brother that I told you about my backstory shown up yet? Like, why haven't you put that in there?
Because he's long lost.
He's long lost. I thought that's what you wanted.
But it does bring up a good point, right? The more that we expect or hope for better backstories out of players, then the bigger the obligation to bring some of that in.
I don't think it's a 1-for-1 obligation. If
I don't-
there's a 6-page
No, I don't
backstory,
think I said some of that. Bring
Some
some
of
of that in. But I don't know if you saw my Confessions of a Mediocre DM
did.
this week, but I love writing backstories for my characters. As a DM, I have sucked at bringing backstory into the game.
I disagree.
I would.
You
say I
can name one.
disagree, too.
You can name one instance.
She jumped onto a ship.
Right, that's the one instance.
It's
Tell
a
me
really-
another time when I brought
It's
backstory
really
into the game.
important one.
Strolatones came in.
No, I have it. Hannah and Tim and their friend played a secondary game, and there was like a shipping company, and like the logo was the helm from our company.
That's not their
But-
backstory.
But he tied in.
It was a cool move.
It was a
but I'm
fucking
going to
brilliant-
agree with John. That
That's
was
an
not-
Easter egg. That's not a backstory.
yeah, that's what that was.
Yes,
It's a
but
freaking
they're
Easter egg.
in the vein.
Anyway, I think I should be better at it, especially since I love doing backstories. And I love it when a DM has read my backstory and then incorporates some. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a 1-for-1 thing. One little nugget from the backstory. It's like, oh, cool.
I personally feel like writing the backstory is on some level its own reward. Knowing your character, knowing
Helps
who
you
they
get
are,
into that character.
helps you get into that character. And then like if the DM decides to bring something in, that's cool. But I don't expect it, and I don't necessarily begrudge them if they don't.
But if you can put that down for me, then, like you did for me, you had a big bad already. You just reskin them to look like somebody from my backstory. And that was easy enough. And then that moment made that whole campaign just epic for me. Like,
That was a pretty easy hook to bite
Right.
too. You were playing like Inigo Montoya
yeah, and dead
parallel mirror type thing.
gender
and
bent.
Putting the man who killed
My mother.
your mother is
It was not inconceivable.
exactly.
So, what I've seen on a lot of plays, actual plays, and I've done it once or twice, beginning of games, right? Opening scene. You're standing over, or, let's do the Edge of Darkness from Call of Cthulhu, right? There's a dude in a hospital bed. He's a professor at Miskatonic University. You guys each have characters that have been invited by him to come see him. And then I ask you, why are you here? Right? That's an opportunity for you to either bring in parts of your backstory to say, I am here because I was the protege of this professor. Or if you don't have it yet, to fill out part of your
Yeah.
backstory. You're a little bit on the spot because, okay, oh shit, why am I here? But watching, I see that a lot on actual plays
Yeah.
at the very beginning. So
What does it
tell
look
us who
like?
you are and why are you here? What brought you here? Yeah.
Fame and glory. I love any actual plays that does the, is there a tavern around here? Yeah. Tell me what it looks like. Okay. I think you did that in Salt Marsh too. You let us to tell you what. A
Yeah,
tavern looks like.
and the looks of total. Isn't that
you
your
tried.
fucking job?
You tried it. We did that.
I don't know.
But now that we've seen more of other people playing, we get that, and now we would be much more.
Help me build the world.
We would be much more able to, because it felt almost like, well, isn't it breaking the rules if I tell you what it looks like?
That was kind of what I was afraid of in the moment too. Was well, I could put like a grappling hook up there, and I didn't want to game the system, but
Yeah.
like we went to the Under the Library seminar at Chaosium Con, and that was basically a lot of what they talked about. Like he said, I let Emily as Florence say, okay, well, you have a bookstore. What does it look like? And she described the bookstore. And
But I
it,
think she also mentioned that it was weird the first time that happened to her. Like,
mhm.
I get to do that?
Yeah.
And
'Cause
you
you're used to
didn't
being told.
notice that, like, listening to it. But once you do it once or twice, it becomes second nature. Like, oh, well, this is what blah, 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 and yada, yada.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No. No, you didn't interrupt at all. Was I even talking?
You started talking.
Oh, I do that a lot. Ignore me.
Well, speaking of 4th of July, we were all over here with the fam and
The
doing
fam.
fam things, and we found ourselves not really having time to break out character sheets and fill them all out. We had a couple hours, and we played this game called Fun Employed.
It was hilarious.
10 out of 10 game. I cannot stress that enough.
And one thing that was kind of unexpected about it, like when it was first described to us, I was thinking, oh, sounds like a game. And once we actually started playing, some of the role play that was happening, it was bite
Fantastic.
size, but some of it was fantastic. You did a number of great characters as well as you.
So did you. You had accents.
I
A lot of not
had
great
half
accents, but
accents.
hilarious. But think of like elevator interviews, and you learn about this in school, like 3-minute pitches. You know, it was like that. Just these little
Mhm.
bite
Right,
size.
so real quickly, the premise of the game is there's a list of cards that are basically
Traits.
attributes or traits, right? You know, and you get a handful of them, and then another deck of cards where whoever is the dealer
The
that round
employer.
is now hiring for a job, and then it puts that job down, right? So it's dentist. Now you look at this list of traits you've got in your hand, and you're going to have to convince this person you're the best person for that job by explaining how these traits would make
So
you.
like,
But without, and we have people in there that we've never played D&D with, that for all I know have never played D&D, but everybody just immediately went into role-playing their interviews and using the thing. It was hilarious, and we weren't all the way around the table the first time when somebody said, oh my God, you could make D&D backgrounds,
Oh, yeah.
backstories out of this stuff.
like you had there was a dentist one, and like my cards for my characteristics was a popped collar, hipster, something else, and edible underwear. And I had to do like an interview pitch to explain to you why those 4 personality quote unquote traits would make me a great dentist. And it was fucking hilarious.
But it's real easy to get caught up in the weeds when you're making a character and try to list accomplishments or power or things that they can do instead of just going down, make a list of traits. And from there, this trait makes them do this trait they get from that. And you can kind of get a full character off a handful of traits that way.
But it is going to be funny. Whatever the character is probably going to be hilarious. Because if you can come up with any character that uses edible underwear as a trait, I'm down to
Right.
play.
So I guess you could use those exact cards, but I think John's point was just concentrate on personality traits and find some out there. But you absolutely could.
I think it'll be great.
But, so for that game, we saw that the card was dentist. And then with the cards we had in our hand, then there was a pile of like 10 face-up cards,
Mhm.
and we could swap out to get the set of traits we wanted for that game. You could do something similar, like, okay, I'm going to play a rogue. I'm going to put out 10 of the cards from that game. I mean, some of those traits, we really had to do some long narrative stretches
Right, to get
to
there.
make it sound like edible panties.
But
right?
then after you would tell me your thing, I would ask you a follow-up question. And like I had, as the employer, a pirate. Like I was hiring for a pirate. And you gave me this long spiel, and one of your cards was like peg leg. And then I drew my card for my follow-up question. I was like, okay, but tell me about squats. And you were like, well, I can do one.
Not plural.
Not plural.
I only have one leg.
And it was great. But even like just that, even if you don't use it for
But that's
a character.
a good point. let's bring it back to TTRPGs, right? You've made a backstory. Then, as the DM, I could ask you a single question. What about squats?
Yeah.
Probably be a different question.
Right.
But then you could then
take that and prompt into
say, okay, now what do I add to my backstory to answer that question? Anyway, the game was cool. It was a lot of fun. Fun employed. You'll have a blast with it.
Not sponsored.
But it's, but would be happy to.
Take it.
But the point was that there's inspiration for backstory stuff all over the place. And we were just playing this and like 4 or 5 of us around the table, like, this would be a great backstory.
But you can imagine like a session 0 where before you touch any character sheets, you play one full game of that just to loosen everybody's improv skills and like critical thinking skills, just to loosen everybody up and get everybody in a good mood. Like, then build your characters. Like, your brain would be
our
primed.
Players that prefer combat were some of the best role players in that fun employed game.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're going to do like an icebreaker, you know, like how all meetings have the, you know, tell me your name and something fun about you. Like if you're going to have a session 1 icebreaker, that game would prime your improv and just like reasoning skills right for it.
That does. Oh,
I was just going to riff on that. Hello, my name is Stas, and I once shot an arrow off my brother's head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody go around the room, introduce yourself, and tell us something interesting about you.
I am 3'2".
Speaking of stars, another tool for building better backstories is during our session 0, we did have a long talk about what your backstories were that you had so far. And from there, as the DM, I would be like, so we can do this and work that in better. And we kind of had a back and forth as the DM and the character. And got everything together. Session 0 can be a very powerful tool for building backstories.
Your Wild Mount game has been the best DM use of character backstories
100%.
that we've had.
Easy.
I think you just say that because you're playing in it, and I've used a lot of yours.
No, I say that very honestly because in that session 0 with me and him, you were like, well, okay, well, there's these groups that you may align yourself with, and you talked him through those groups that if you hadn't sat down with us, we wouldn't have known those groups were there. We wouldn't have known what they were about, or that I could say I'm part of the Cobalt Soul or I'm part of whatever. And it gave me a springboard for how my character reacts to, say, Sarah's character, who is part of this other group that the Cobalt Soul doesn't really like. Or you put a lot of the story and the geography and the politics of into our backstories and helped us pick things that made sense.
That's fair, I guess. Yeah.
And it hasn't just been my backstory that's come into play during the game. What's your mom's character's name?
Juju Faye.
Juju Faye's brother. Nobody likes Hystic, so nothing there.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody likes Hystic.
Our druid had a pretty good story of how she got her fire spirit.
But you had Sarah's character had people from her like wealthy daddy's company come and
that's right,
visit her
dealership.
Yeah, like my dad owns a dealership. Like, so you've done a spectacular job at that. I'm not going to say this is the best game we've ever played ever, but as far as background, you've done an amazing job of weaving it in.
I really enjoyed the Wild Mount story, so
I did too.
Kind of.
I feel like we sucked at it. We felt like we got lost a lot. We're like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I have no idea.
Yeah, some of that was, we played pretty regular, and then we had a long break, and then played, long break, and then played. It was hard to remember where we were at, what we were doing.
What we had planned to go do.
Just the long breaks have kind of made it so
down.
that, poor John, I think we were headed that way.
Sounds about right.
Because there were some dudes and some thing over there and a fork.
That's literally what John has said every time. Sounds about right.
Yeah.